Nick right in for Colin. Colin will be back in just a few days. And we've got Rick Bucher joining us in less than 20 minutes to discuss, maybe I misheard him, what has to be the wildest take on record in 2020. Rick Bucher in 20 minutes doing that. Joy Taylor with the news in less than 5. But first, so everything in life is 50-50. It's either will happen or won't. It's not actually 50-50. It's a terrible gambling thought on it, but disregard. Will the NBA come back or won't the NBA come back? If the NBA does come back, there is one team that is poised to potentially benefit from it in a totally different way than everyone else. And it's the Brooklyn Nets. And I know their GM, Sean Marks, tried to throw some cold water on this just yesterday when asked, well, if the season restarts in July, could Kevin Durant come back? He would have been more than a year removed from his Achilles surgery. And Sean Marks smartly tried to say, no, that would be totally unfair. You can't ask Kevin to do that. And keep in mind, of course, Kevin injured the Achilles initially, by coming back too early in a playoff setting. And so I understand why you wouldn't want to put anything out there that would make it feel like you're expecting KD to come back. But the Nets signed KD and Kyrie to these deals believing we are not going to contend for a title in year 1. It's all about years 2 and 3. But because of this new NBA calendar, if we do get a season, the door does creak open that Kevin Durant says, man, I've been ready to go for 2 months. Kyrie's healed, and the Nets become the most dangerous 7 seed we've ever seen. That the Nets become a team that their window for contention is right now. That's if the season does come back. On the flip side, as you're seeing the Clippers, everyone's talking about the Lakers. Oh, if the season doesn't come back, what it cost the Lakers. And obviously, the Lakers are the favorites to win the title. If the season resumes, they will win the title. So yes, it cost them an immense amount. But the Clippers are in the other position. And that position is the Clippers traded away 7 future first-round picks due to direct trades and swaps, plus Danilo Gallinari and one of the best young players in basketball, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. For what? To get not just Paul George, but Paul George and Kawhi, because Kawhi wasn't coming if they didn't make that trade. They did that, I think, when they made the trade, believing at a minimum we get 3 playoff runs out of these guys. Then Paul George and Kawhi just signed 2-year deals with a player option for year 3. And now if the season doesn't come back, it is absolutely on the board that Steve Ballmer, who's spending $500 million of his money to buy the old Forum, try to turn LA into a Clippers town, getting Marcellus Wiley and the whole bandwagon full, that they traded their entire future away for what could be 1 playoff run with Kawhi and Paul George. It's now, listen, obviously what's going on right now is not preventable by anyone involved in the NBA, and it's nobody's fault involved with anyone in the NBA. Nobody could have planned for it. But it's a really interesting sliding door scenario. It comes back. Maybe the Nets get an extra year out of thin air of contention if KD and Kyrie decide, you know what, we're good to go. And if it doesn't come back, while in theory everyone loses a year of contention, the Clippers, who traded so much of their future for this narrow window with Kawhi and Paul George, that window could be down to 1 total playoff run coming next season between these 2 guys. Here's Joy with the news.
No.
Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Herdline News is sponsored by Liberty Mutual Insurance. Only pay for what you need. So Tua is projected to be taken very early in the draft, which would leave the Patriots at the 23rd pick well out of contention for that happening. But Ben Berlin of the Boston Globe is suggesting that New England could move up into the first round and try and get Tua. He points out that there's a close connection between the Patriots and the Lions, who have the 3rd overall pick, as a way that Belichick could sneak up and draft his quarterback of the future. The Lions GM, Bob Quinn, spent 16 years with the Patriots, and obviously head coach Matt Patricia spent 14 years there. And since Quinn has joined the Lions in 2016, the two teams have made 4 player trades and 3 draft day trades. Now, for the most part, everyone was assuming that the Patriots are really not going to take a quarterback unless there's one of those middle-tier quarterbacks, Jacob Eason possibly, maybe even Jordan Love, who are sitting there at the end of the first round, and then they could scoop them up there. But I don't believe that those guys will actually be there. Maybe one of them, but there's so many teams that need quarterbacks, and in my opinion, I don't understand why you don't just take a quarterback at some point in the draft every year. To me, I mean, obviously not in the first round, but this is really interesting. This is a very important nugget to keep in mind on this draft day, which I think is going to be filled with major trades anyway because of Tua and Burrow. But this is making you crazy. It's making me crazy.
Well, Sorry, Joey, go ahead.
I also think that the Lions are not interested in taking a quarterback. I know a few Lions fans, and I don't want to say that they speak for all of Lions fans, but they really love Stafford still. Like, they believe in him wholeheartedly, and everything that we've heard from the Lions is that they're not interested in taking a quarterback this year. So if they can make some sort of trade and move back, the issue is, are they going to take a lesser trade because of this relationship?
Well, that's the thing. I have no issue with the Lions. If Tua is on the board and the Lions aren't going to take him, then they absolutely should trade back. Just like the Colts, they believe Darnold's going to be there. The Jets want him. They're not going to take him. They trade back from 3 to 6 and get 3 additional second-round picks. That's a great trade by the Colts. If a franchise quarterback's there and you're not taking him, then you definitely should trade out of the spot. That doesn't mean you trade back down to 23 because you used to work with the guy. If the Patriots end up being able to be like, hey, how does the 23rd, 87th pick and Julian Edelman sound for Tua Tagovailoa? I demand not a Roger Goodell investigation, a congressional investigation. I want there to be committees. I want there to maybe we can bring back Bob Mueller, see what he's doing. I want to get to the bottom of it because I'm prematurely angry about it. I think who should trade with the Lions, Joy? Your Miami Dolphins. Include their last first-round pick and number 5, move up 2 spots, get Tua. You still have the extra pick from trading for Minka, and get it rolling. Like, that's who should be trading up to 3, not the Patriots. I don't even want to speak this LeVar Ball style into existence. I want to move on. It gives me anxiety.
I'm still holding out hope until the very last second, until his name is said, that the Dolphins give them everything we have and move up and get Burrow. But yes, I agree. That is a more reasonable trade. So Sammy Watkins and the Chiefs have agreed to a new 1-year deal, something you are much more happy about than the Tua rumor. Watkins was set to make $13.75 million in 2020, but now he's taking a pay cut. He'll get $9 million with the opportunity to earn another $7 million in incentives. The deal also reportedly has a no-trade clause, so the move will give the Chiefs an additional $5 million in cap space. They only had $177 in cap space before restructuring the Watkins deal.
Yeah, they were up against it. They were up against the money, Joy, but this is what I'm so happy about. It's not just that the Chiefs are bringing everyone back. It's that if they had just cut Sammy Watkins, which I thought they were going to do, or traded him, they would have opened up $14 million of cap space. And when you drafted McCole Hardman in the second round, and you have Tyreek Hill, and you have Travis Kelce, some people would argue you move on from Watkins, you can't afford it, you need the cap space. But what the Chiefs, I think, recognized is we just won the Super Bowl. Now is not the time to cut costs. Now is the time to keep the pedal pressed and try to bring everyone back that we can. We'll deal with that bill later. Let's see if we can rack up another Super Bowl before you have to pay Patrick Mahomes. So I'm thrilled by this. You're absolutely right that $177 of cap space wasn't going to do him much good, if we're being honest. $5,177 worth of cap space not going to do him much good either, but it's better than nothing. So they open up cap space. They keep Sammy Watkins. I get to potentially add in 10 months to this beautiful wall behind me. It's all good in my universe, Joy Taylor.
I also like the idea of rewarding and working with people that you already have in your system and in the building. I think there's value to keeping guys who you know what they are, you know what their work ethic is, they know the system. And again, for this particular year, to your point, I'm keeping in consideration all of these moves that you may not have as much time to prepare for the season as you usually do. You're already having to make exceptions and maneuver around what we are all dealing with the virus. So to keep people that already know how everything works in place and so you can free up space, that's smart business there. So this is something I cannot absolutely stand. This is making me crazy. So the Bears have previously said they were committed to Mitchell Trubisky as their starter in 2020, which I didn't love, but all right, fine. You're going to give him another year. Then they make a trade to get Nick Foles from the Jaguars. And today, Bears GM Ryan Pace said the team views their quarterback situation as an open competition. He said he has talked to both players about it and that they are embracing it. Now, from the surface, this may seem like a good situation. You want to see who the best guy is for the job. But here's my problem with the Bears. Starting with the Bears. The Bears are, to me, in a win-now situation. They have a great defense. They have a Super Bowl contending defense, right? They can't figure out the quarterback position. I don't think that Mitchell Trubisky is the guy. I like Nick Foles, but who knows if Nick Foles is the guy either. Oh, except for Nick Foles won a Super Bowl and, Super Bowl MVP. So he has shown he's able to win the big games. My thing is, if you have more than one quarterback, you have no quarterback because it should be very clear who the guy is, no matter what. That position is so crucial to knowing who the guy is he the leader, who's the team following, he's setting the tone. So to go into a season, especially a season like this, and you don't know who the guy is, just say it's Trubisky and Nick Foles is the backup. And then if Mitch doesn't perform, like we pretty much all assume he won't, then you turn it over to Nick. But you've got to go into the season with, especially this season, knowing who your guy is.
Joy, you're spot on. One of the best quotes from the greatest television show of all time, The Wire, was the very first time we see the supervillain Marlo Stanfield. He says, either do it or don't, but I got places to be. Meaning, make your decision one way or the other, but quit delaying. Either go with Mitch or go with Nick, but make your call. When they brought in Nick Foles, I thought it was going to be a Marcus Mariota, Ryan Tannehill situation. Number 2 overall pick who is underwhelmed, but you don't want to take the job away from him, but you bring in a guy who can easily replace him if he continues to underperform. But there was another quote from Ryan Pace today that I thought was very interesting that spoke to maybe this is Nick Foles in the pole position for this job. When Ryan Pace said, we view Foles as our prize of free agency. Very rarely do you view a backup quarterback, Joy, as your prize of free agency. So maybe they're already leaning that way. Pace just doesn't want to have to deal with announcing that Trubisky's officially lost his job, because then the reality is you traded the 3rd pick, 2 third-round picks, and a 4th-round pick just so you could pass on Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and take a guy who's not going to make it out of his rookie contract, Joy Taylor.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I felt that same way about Nick Foles coming in. But I don't know. For me, anytime I hear quarterback competition, I just like, okay, so we don't have to worry about them this year.
That's absolutely right. And by the way, we don't have to worry about the Bears this year. That's Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
So Joy, though, in the news said something, well, she said a lot of things really interesting, but one thing in particular piqued my interest is that she really wants the Dolphins, is hoping the Dolphins do what it takes to move up and get Joe Burrow. And I know Joy and Colin have been talking about this on Wednesday, I think it was, and about what should Cincinnati do if a team comes to them and offers them a bucket of assets for the number 1 overall pick. And it's when you need a quarterback, and it looks like there's a quarterback, especially when he's from your hometown and or from your home state, just came off arguably the most prolific season in the history of college football, your gut is, we've got to take him. But there's an absolute misconception in the NFL about the value of number 1 picks. In the NBA, the single best thing you can win is a championship. The second best thing you can win is the number 1 overall pick of the draft. That turns into LeBron or Zion or Anthony Davis or Blake Griffin or Derrick Rose, all these stars. The number 1 overall pick of the NFL draft, can we show the list of them post Peyton Manning. Here's your number one overall picks post Peyton Manning, not including Kyler, Baker, and Myles Garrett because it's too early to rank. Eli is a champion. 500 record, unspectacular regular season, but a champion. He's top of the pyramid. After that, nobody really worked out great. Listen, I love Cam. He was a franchise quarterback. His team just got rid of him. He's 30 years old. Luck looked like he was going to be a superstar. He played 86 games. Matt Stafford has never won a playoff game. And those are your next best. Solid players. Jake Long. He made a Pro Bowl with Miami, but they didn't give him a second contract. Jadeveon Clowney. He made a Pro Bowl with the Texans. They didn't give him a second contract. Mario Williams. He made a Pro Bowl with the Texans. They didn't give him a second contract. All those guys moved on. Then Eric Fisher, who's been solid but very unspectacular. Then go to the next tier. These are all your number one picks. I'm not picking and choosing. This is post-Peyton Manning up until Myles Garrett, Baker, and Kyler. Vic had his best year with his second team. Alex Smith had his best year with his second team. Carson Palmer had his best year with his third team. Jared Goff right now has a contract that's an albatross around his team's neck. Jameis Winston didn't make it to his second contract. Sam Bradford bounced around the league and got injured. And that's, by the way, those guys aren't even the busts. The busts are Couch, Courtney Brown, David Carr, and of course Jamarcus Russell. That is every single number one pick from Peyton Manning up until 3 years ago. And so I'm not saying the past is always an indicator of the future. And if Trevor Lawrence, who I think is a super duper star, was in this draft class, I'd never trade the pick despite that chart. But if you're Cincinnati and Miami says you can have all three of our first round picks, move to 5, maybe still get Tua, I think that's a deal you have to strongly consider taking, even if your fans won't like it. Speaking of things people don't like, I had a physical reaction to something Rick Bucher said earlier this week. He's going to explain it to me, and I'm going to try to contain myself. That is next on The Herd.